Hey, what's up, Rattlers? So I am at TSK Supply's world headquarters here in Utah. I have always wanted to come here. You know, to say that Dan and Collette Sutherland are pioneers in the reptile world is such an enormous understatement, but Dan and Collette Sutherland work with tons of different snakes. And in this video, I'm going to focus on the green tree pythons that Dan and Collette Sutherland work with here at TSK for all of you guys out there that have requested a green tree python episode. And Brian Cusco is going to film an episode on the ball pythons here, so check out his channel as well. But for now, let's check out these amazing green tree pythons here at TSK. I'm Dave Kaufman, and these are my Reptile Adventures.
At Zilla, we are dedicated to the innovation of caging, lighting, and equipment solutions that provide proper husbandry for your pet's long and happy life. To see our entire catalog, visit zillarules.com.
All right, so this is Collette Sutherland, and this portion of the, well, I guess the facility is all green tree pythons, and this is really what I wanted to focus on. So, you know, these morphs that you have are, to say they're incredible is just a downright lie. These are beyond incredible. So how long have you been working with these?
Gosh, you know what? I'd have to look to see. Since 2008.
Since 2008?
Yeah.
So when you got into these in 2008, you know, there weren't a lot of morphs, and a lot of these morphs have come from obviously selective breeding. So what were the first two that you got in 2008, and what do they look like?
Well, the first one that I got, he was already older. He was a blue cyclops named Arctic Blue.
Oh, wow.
And he was really pretty. But he was an adult when we acquired him, and he passed away a few years ago. But we acquired, this was one of the first animals that we acquired, and that's a Greg Maxwell line calico. And then pretty much everything else in here is offspring either from Arctic Blue or a couple of our other projects that we have going.
Gotcha. So for those just getting into green tree pythons now, kind of explain what the calico gene is.
Green trees do not work like ball pythons. The only thing that they have that's simple recessive is albino green trees. Everything else is pretty much selectively bred for traits. And so you get two snakes, put them together, and they have eggs, and you hope for the best. But then, I mean, you can have two nondescript looking snakes that are rather plain, and they can produce outstanding animals too. So a lot of it is based on the parentage, the grandparents, their great grandparents, what's been produced down through history, and so it's not quite the same as with working with the ball pythons.
Right, so most of it is line
Lineage.
breeding and, you know, getting those colors to come out in the offspring, breeding this really good looking one to that good looking one. Now you also have a blue line here.
Yeah, and our real blue, well, like I said, Arctic Blue passed away, but this is one of his daughters that we have, and she came out pretty blue. So she's definitely not as blue as her dad was, but she's not bad.
So if somebody wants to get into, you know, just working with the blue line, what would they have to start with?
A healthy bank account.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, there's some really good established blue lines out there. Mr. Blue was a famous blue line male. I have one of his offspring here, but you have to save up, and they're expensive, and if you want to buy it already turned blue, it's even more. If you want to buy it when it's a baby and wait for it to go through its color change, then it'll cost less.
Gotcha. What ballpark does a baby blue cost?
There's like the black and blue melanistic lines that are similar to this, and one of those as a baby that's just starting to change is about
10,000.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about, you know, breeding methods with green tree pythons. What is your methodology for breeding green tree pythons?
I pretty much breed them like I do the boas or the ball pythons. It's primarily during the winter season. Try to take advantage of every low that comes through. The temperature in our room naturally drops because it's colder outside. And I introduce the males into the females' cages. And I just keep track and rotate it through. And I haven't pulled off all my stickers from last year. They're still up there.
Yeah, I do the same thing.
But
Yeah.
I'll get them moved eventually.
Right. There's no reason to, streamline and not confuse ourselves.
That's right. So
what time of year do you start the cool down process? And do you do a night drop, or do you just kind of let the ambient temperature in here fluctuate by the seasons?
our ambient air temperature in here drops. It'll drop from where it is right now about 10 to 15 degrees. And so generally I just use that drop. I really don't do, change the temperatures. They already have a nighttime drop that's on them. So they benefit because the room's colder, and then so they can get as cool as they want.
Gotcha. And then do you pay attention to barometric pressure changes that are occurring naturally here in Utah?
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. And you can tell, like, she's sitting in the middle. This one's on the cold side. This one's on the hot side. This one's in the shed. They'll move around, and you can watch them moving back and forth, and see what how they're behaving. So we keep an eye on that too.
Gotcha. And if they sit more on the cool side, what does that tell you?
Generally, it suggests that they're developing follicles.
Right.
And then, depending upon, they're like any other snake. They'll sit cool, they'll do all the right things. You'll feed them, and they'll stop eating, and then they start looking great, and they start going to the hot side, and then they do what they want to do.
Exactly right. When they're developing those follicles and sitting on the cool side, it's basically akin to a ball python wrapping itself around that water dish and, trying to build those follicles. So,
Yep.
Wow. So I got to ask you, with all of the green tree pythons in here, what do you have? Maybe 40 of them in here right now?
There's like 26.
26.
Yeah, there's like 26 adult. Well, these are sub-adults right here. So yeah, I've got 26.
So in all these enclosures here, you have about 26 green tree pythons.
Well, these are only males here. The small cages are the males.
Oh, I see how you got it set up. So these smaller enclosures here are males,
Yes.
and then the larger enclosures all over here are all female.
Yes.
I got to ask you the question that nobody can answer. Which one is your favorite?
Which one's my favorite?
All of them, right?
Well, they're all unique. They all bring their own contributions. Some I go, ooh, you look really cool. Obviously Splash is very eye-catching, and he looks really cool.
Yeah.
Which is
Splash is
the calico there.
amazing.
This male down here at the bottom that we hatched a couple years ago, he's pretty cool too. Each one's different. Each brings its own different personality and idiosyncrasies.
Absolutely. So let's talk about Splash for a second, because this is an amazing green tree python. What is Splash's story?
A gentleman owned him here up north, and he had purchased him from Greg Maxwell, and so he's considered a Greg Maxwell calico. And when we purchased him from him, we also got a Biak female that didn't come with any information, and we produced from her. And so, we're looking for a few more good collections from him.
Yeah, it's an amazing snake.
Yeah, those are his offspring over there.
Okay, so this is the babies here.
Yeah, these are a year old, and we bred him back to his daughter, and so these are still going through their color changes here. As you can see, this one's still pretty red.
Oh my God, look at that.
So he's still going through his color change.
And now these are all, these have all originated obviously from New Guinea. These are not, I don't think that there shouldn't be any Australian green tree pythons outside of Australia. I saw plenty of those when I was over in Australia.
Right.
But what's interesting about that is that in the Australian green tree pythons, the babies, there are no red babies. They're all yellow.
Really?
And in New Guinea green tree pythons, you get both the yellows and the reds. So that one
Right.
has a lot of red to it, and you can tell that it's still kind of young. How old is that snake?
This snake hatched in April of last year, so he's just over a year old.
Just over a year, okay. So since we're looking at babies, let's talk about incubation methods.
When I incubate eggs, I don't incubate them any different than my ball pythons. They go in the same incubator, in the same substrate. The eggs are in the substrate. I don't do it any different.
So 89 degrees, same as ball pythons?
We bumped our incubator down to 88.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So have you noticed that 1 degree difference is
It's
different?
no, they still hatch when they're supposed to. It just the equipment says it's running at this temperature, and then the eggs, it's just worked better.
Okay.
At the 88.
What is the gestation on green tree python egg?
It's shorter than the ball pythons. Okay, from ovulation to egg deposition, it's after the shed. They lay up to about 14 days is when they drop the eggs.
So from that pre-lay shed to dropping eggs is about 14 days.
It's about 14 days. I mean, obviously some go sooner and some go later.
Sure.
Eggs hatch earlier than the ball pythons do. I think it's between 50 and 54 days. I have to double check that
Sure.
every year, but that's...
Because usually, generally speaking, when a ball python has its pre-lay shed,
It's
you've got 30
days.
days, right? And
Yep.
then you've got 60 days to sit there and check those eggs every 5 minutes.
That's right. Every 5 minutes, yes. Yes.
Fantastic. And what about feeding these guys? Is feeding problematic with green tree pythons?
When they get this size, it's pretty simple. They all have a pretty strong feeding response. I mean, if you look at most of them, they're already wondering if I'm going to feed them again this
Right.
week. Babies can be a challenge. It can take it takes a while to get them started.
Yeah.
So, but but once they get started, after a few months of consistent feedings, then they're pretty solid.
Then they go. Mm-hmm. What is the hardest part about breeding green tree pythons?
Starting the babies.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What tips can you give people that are just starting to breed that have problems with their babies? What tips can you give them on getting them started eating?
Patience.
Yeah?
Yeah. And consistency. I know a lot of people, you have different tricks and things. I haven't yet had to resort to parakeet down or any of those types of things. So I've been very fortunate that way. I do make sure when I start them off, I get the smallest pinkies that I can find.
Sure.
But,
Yeah, because these are bird eaters in the wild. And now, are you using that parakeet down to scent the pinkies?
So,
Or?
some people do. I haven't had to do that personally. So they've been pretty good about it for me. So hopefully I'll never have to go that route.
Yeah, this is one of the most impressive. I mean, this whole facility is impressive, and I would love to spend 3 or 4 months just walking around and looking at everything. But this is one of the most impressive green tree python collection I've ever seen. I mean, you have kind of a sample of all the different kinds of colors and line-bred morphs that we have here. This is really amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, Collette, thank you so much for having me over and showing us all your amazing green tree pythons. There are some line-bred morphs here that I am now seeing for the first time, and wow, this is just simply amazing.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah. So, Rattlers, I know a lot of you guys have requested a green tree python episode, and I could not think of a better place to do this episode than here at TSK. So I'm going to put the link for TSK in the description below. They don't just do snakes, they do shipping boxes, they do deli cups, they do everything that you need for your reptile business. So go down in the description below and check them out. Also, while you're down there, check out our sponsors as well. So guys, for absolutely no reason whatsoever, here's Clint Laidlaw. So, thanks for watching, guys, and until the next reptile adventure, love the planet and rattle on.